Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled parent stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Am I the jerk for deciding I won't give any Christmas gifts this year after my mom canceled a transaction on my card? After that, how I ruined 2013 Thanksgiving by getting mad at entitled kid for hitting me with a wooden chair. And after that, entitled parent, who used to be in a well-known commercial for men's suits, destroys my confidence with one sentence. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen gets her confidence destroyed. I already deal with self-esteem issues, so please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Am I the jerk for deciding I won't give any Christmas gifts this year after my mom canceled a transaction on my card? I'm still angry over this, and I may not write very well. And also I probably don't judge the situation very well being this angry, so I come to you. I'm a student. I have a student bank account where my college gives me money for transport when we had physical classes or scholarship. These kinds of bank accounts have no fees but are age restricted. Can't have one if you're over 25 and need an overseer. When I asked the bank about it, they told me it's just a security thing, so I chose my mom because she's more tech savvy than my dad. Well, through some incredible luck, I managed to get only top grades last year, so I was awarded a study scholarship. Great! I've been saving it up, looking forward to worldwide Black Friday, eyeing an amazing drawing tablet. I do digital art on very old intros. The tablet I was eyeing is as big as my monitor. It's a display one and all around amazing. Black Friday rolls in and Amazon in Germany, closest to me, has it in stock at an amazing price, a price I could afford. I was so happy I ordered it. Then I got a notice that the bank refused the card. I emailed Amazon, their customer service is so fast, and we went over the card details and such, making sure it was all right. It was, and they advised me to call my bank. It was odd. I had bought things online in the past with this card and it went through. I had enough money for it, even extra, so I thought maybe they had technical difficulties. But it was too late in the day to call and they don't work weekends, so I left an email. Only to find out today that for big transactions, they ask for agreement from the overseer and that mine canceled the transfer. I was like, what the heck? And confronted mom about it, who throughout the weekend acted oblivious, and she told me that of course she couldn't let me throw money on something I don't need, and that I wouldn't have money for Christmas presents if I bought that. Then she had the audacity to ask me what I was planning to get my family this year. I told her that they won't get anything more than a bread shadow from me, and I went to my room and cried on the carpet. I missed out on the offer. I can't afford the tablet anymore, and it's all because mom wanted Christmas gifts. And no, I won't get her anything. Last year she got me a blouse too small for me that she later took for herself. She can gift herself this year too. A bread shadow is an expression for nothing in my language. Edit. Thank you so much for people offering me money in comments and DMs, but I can't accept that. I'm really grateful for you trying to help me, but I really can't take that. I'm really thankful for the offers and advice. So many people offered me advice, money, their tablets, or other means of helping, and I'm really thankful to you all. Also, lots of you told me to check the sale that's going on right now, but the tablet I ordered wasn't on sale. Yet, Epic Hamster found it. Same specs, different seller. For sale at an even better price than the Black Friday sale. I ordered it, it went through this time, and I'm so happy and excited. Thank you from all of my heart to everyone. I'm still going to reply to all of you, even if it's going to take me all night. Happy holidays to all of you. Frequently asked questions. This account I have to have because of my uni, but I'm going to make dad the overseer and also open an account at another bank, a normal one, and transfer the money in small amounts to that one so I don't bother dad with it. I'm an adult in my country. I'm 20, going to be 21 in April. The law asks my parents to support me until I finish my studies, or at least until I'm 26, but I plan on moving out sooner. I will gift my sister and dad. They have nothing to do with the incident and I love them lots. I love mom too, but can't put up with her attitude any longer. Regarding what I'll give her, not sure yet, but there are some amazing ideas in the comments. She didn't react like that because she got me the tablet already. It's not her character to get me something she can't use. Regarding the gift Dad's planning on, and which she'll claim is from both of them, Dad is going to build a bigger enclosure for my lizard. I may wrap my lizard's old branches nice and gift them to Mom, as per Christmas traditions regarding naughty kids. And she doesn't like my scaly boy at all, so double points I guess. People saying that a drawing tablet is useless, thanks for your input, But the question was if I was a jerk for the way I reacted and my decision to not give her a gift anymore. As it's my money, I literally can do whatever I wish with it, and a display drawing tablet is incredibly useful for an aspiring digital artist as myself. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their mom? Please let us know.
Definitely Mom, but OP too for not showing us pictures of that cool lizard they have.
How I ruined 2013 Thanksgiving by getting mad at entitled kid for hitting me with a wooden chair. So this all happened 7 years ago when I was a 16-year-old boy. It was Thanksgiving and the family was going to get together for it. But the majority of people going to the party was a part of my stepmom's family, and her entire family, including herself, happened to be the most narcissistic folks you would ever know in your life. They could accidentally give you a serious injury and still somehow make it your fault. My dad wasn't any better, honestly. All he ever cared about was women and his reputation. I used to lie to save his reputation, but I'm not hiding it anymore. Anyways, my dad, my stepmom, my stepbrother, and I all got ready and started heading over to my stepmom's parents' house, and on the way, they both gave me and my stepbrother a lecture on being on our best behavior, and "we will take you home if you ruin this day." I was honestly not at all interested in going to this party. I knew that I'm the only teen there, so there isn't anyone my age to socialize with, and trying to socialize with a bunch of narcissists is like trying to find the edge of a sphere. Also, there was a specific person who was going to be there, a sadistic 8-year-old demon we will call Tyrant, because his real name honestly sounded very close to that. Tyrant is literally the ideal nightmare bully we all were scared of encountering when we were in elementary school. He would pick on others for his own amusement, get physical, hurt bugs and rodents, and have a maniacal giggle as he did any of this. Worst of all, Tyrant's parents enabled this. They would excuse anything he did, no matter how bad it was. Now that I look back on it, he and his parents were very much like the Dursley family. When we arrived at the house, we were let in by my stepmom's dad, and the house was full of people. Some I know, some I didn't know. I looked around and did not see Tyrant or his parents in sight and got a little excited, thinking I wouldn't have to deal with the little devil. But before I could relax, my dad told me that I needed to go see the kids' room with my stepbrother. I paused for a moment and then asked him why I can't stay out in the living room, and he said, "The owner's rule is kids go to the kids' room. Now go in there." I tried to rebel, telling him that at 16 I shouldn't be forced into a room full of kids way younger than me. But he got mad and threatened to take me home with no food. I honestly don't know why I didn't take that instead of staying, because it would have been a lot better than what is to come, but I was hungry and chose to stay. So I went to the kids' room. The kids' room was a small square-shaped room that had one couch, some toy bins, a kid's wooden table with chairs, and a TV. There were at least 3 kids in there, one being the demon spawn himself, Tyrant, who was talking to his parents. His parents are just dropping him off into the room, telling him to be a good little angel, etc., and go to leave the room. As they're leaving, they don't even acknowledge my existence, nearly bumping into me as they approach the door. It boggles my mind how people are fine with being so rude, especially to those way younger than them. After they left the room, Tyrant let out an excited screech and went ballistic on the toy bins, throwing things out everywhere. I just sat there on the couch, trying to cancel out the inhumane noises made by this kid, when I remembered that there is a TV in this room. I thought that maybe if I turned on some cartoons, that I would be able to calm him down, so I looked for the remote. I search around the room, and there is no remote to be found. After looking for it, I decided to leave the room to go ask my stepmom's parents if they knew where it was. When I got to them, I was greeted with a, "What are you doing out here?" and asked them if they knew where the remote was. My stepmom's dad then told me that he took them away before we all got there so he can make the kids play together and not stare at a screen like zombies. They then told me to go back to the room, and my stepmom's mom followed me back. When I got back to the room, it was a mess. Tyrant managed to trash the entire room the one single minute I was gone. My stepmom's mom told me,
"Since you are the oldest in here, I expect you to clean up after the kids. Thanks."
But before I could even protest that, she shut the door. I groaned in disappointment and went to go clean up the toys scattered all over. After cleaning it all up, I sat on the couch and closed my eyes, letting out a sigh in boredom. Then suddenly, I hear a loud bang. I look and see Tyrant throwing toys like an NFL quarterback. Some of the kids, including my stepbrother, move out of the way to dodge some of the flying action figures and blocks. I went out of the room and tried to get the attention of Tyrant's parents. When I got up to them, I tried to tell them what was happening, but they interrupted me, saying, "No, you aren't allowed out here. Go back to the kids' room." Of course, me being the typical forcefully obedient teen, I turn around and go back to the room, which again was a mess. Yet another round of cleaning up after another person's kid. Hooray! Honestly, I can't believe back then why I never questioned why this 8-year-old was behaving like a 4-year-old, but I guess I already had the answer when I met his parents back then for the first time. Anyways, after cleaning up yet another mess, I tried to lay down on the couch. I thought that maybe if I got a little nap in, I'd be able to make this night go by faster. Tyrant started to calm down, so it was a perfect time. I started to doze off when I heard the sound of kids arguing. I sit back up and see Tyrant pulling toys away from my stepbrother while saying,
It's mine!
I intervened and told them to stop fighting. I pulled out some building blocks that I originally put away and suggested they play with these together, and they actually agreed, thank God. An uneventful hour passes, and I'm starting to wonder when the food will be done. I stand up to go ask the adults, but then I remembered that they don't like me out there, so I peeked out the door. The adults were all at the table talking about various stuff and laughing over terrible jokes. I saw that no food was out on the table, so I assumed that it wasn't done cooking yet. Then I hear a loud smack sound. I turn around and see one of the kids crying, holding their cheek, while Tyrant giggles in the corner. I asked him what happened, and he told me that Tyrant had hit him. I went over to Tyrant, who was still giggling like a pest, and tried to tell him what he did was wrong, but he interrupted me by saying,
You're not my dad,
and then went back to playing with toys. I was just standing there wondering what to do, seeing this little brat act like this and the other kid still holding his cheek and sniffling. I knew that going out of the room to tell his parents would make them mad, but I gave into it and went out anyways. Before they could tell me to go back to the room, I interrupted them and said, No, you have to listen. Tyrant is hitting the others and making them cry. The entire table went silent. At that point, I thought I finally got their attention, but Tyrant's mom then said,
Why don't you do something about it then?
I told her that I in fact did, but he didn't listen to me. The adults were all mumbling to each other, and Tyrant's dad then said, You are old enough to know how to deal with this. Stop being a tattletale. I looked around to the other adults with a, is he serious face, but they all looked at me disappointedly. Even my dad, who looked red and angry at me. I said, fine, and went back to the room. I was done with the BS at this rate. Tyrant was being awful, and the adults were not helping. So I thought to myself that if they wanted me to handle it, then fine, I will handle it my way. As I entered the room, I of course expected it to be a mess, but it was beyond that. The kids' table was knocked over, puzzle pieces everywhere, and the kids trying to pick them up. I groaned, knowing exactly who did this, but I didn't see Tyrant. I looked around, thinking he was hiding in a corner, but he was not in sight. Although it was odd he just vanished like that, I bent down onto my knees to pick up the table and help the kids pick up the puzzle pieces. That's when I hear that disturbing giggle. I pause, knowing whose giggle it was. I look up, and then it happened. Tyrant swung a small wooden chair right into my face. The pain was so intense, I rolled backwards, my hands on my face, moaning in pain, trying to process what had just happened. After the pain started to calm down, I got on one knee, looking at how Tyrant was giggling and holding the chair, as all the other kids stare in shock at him. That's when it all came to me. This little demon had planned this. He deliberately made a large mess, knowing I would bend down to clean it so he would be able to get me. At that point, all I felt was anger. I stood up glaring at Tyrant as he giggled. Then this kid had the audacity to go in for another strike, this time aiming for my stomach. But I grabbed the chair mid-swing, pulled it out of his hands, and slammed it on the ground and let out a loud, "Enough!" I said it so loud that it boomed through the entire house. Everything stopped. The kids, the noises, and even the adults talking. Uh-oh. Tyrant just stared at me, surprised as I stood there, still with anger. But then I hear loud stomping coming. The door swings open, and it's my dad. He yells at me to come out of the room right now and to go talk with the adults. When I go out, I see that the adults were all staring at me like I just poisoned the water hole. My stepmom then said,
Why are you yelling at kids?
I tried to tell her, but I was interrupted by Tyrant's mom, who said,
You have no reason to yell at kids.
It was then I got lectured by each and every adult there at the same time, each talking over each other at me, telling me how awful and disrespectful I am. I started to cry and shouted at them to stop. I shouted that I yelled because Tyrant had hit me on the head with a chair. They all stopped and looked at each other, again thinking I finally got their attention, but I was wrong. Tyrant's mom spoke up and said,
But he's way shorter than you. How can he do that?
And before I could explain it, his dad says, Even if he did, it can't hurt that bad. He's only 8. These morons have no idea what it feels like to be hit in the face with a chair. I snapped and told them that if they listened and let me speak, they would get it. I guess I said it in a really upset tone because the adults gasped and looked at me like I had just done something horrible. My dad then said, "That's it," stood up and grabbed me by the arm. He dragged me out into his car and started it. I asked him what he was doing, and he told me, "Your attitude has ruined Thanksgiving for us. I'm taking you back home. You don't deserve to have Thanksgiving dinner." I didn't even want to argue with him. I was angry, sick of all the BS, and actually wanted to go home at that point. He drops me off back at home, and he sped off in a hurry. There I was, home alone, where I made my Thanksgiving dinner, some soup and a grilled cheese. It was depressing, but it was a heck of a lot better than being stuck in that house with that demon spawn. The next day I get the usual, "You're grounded for a month," and "I'm taking your stuff away." But I didn't care. I was used to being punished regularly and treated like a troubled teen, but thankfully all that ended when I finally got to move out in 2018. My dad did divorce my stepmom before that, but none of that mattered at the time because even though one problem was out of the house, there was still another. But now my life is not a part of his anymore. Now I'm a lot better and just recently had a great, socially distanced Thanksgiving with my friends and my grandmother, and hope in the future I will continue to have good Thanksgivings. Entitled parent who used to be in a well-known commercial for men's suits destroys my confidence with one sentence. So this happened around 10 years ago when I was 16 years old, working my first job at a local restaurant as a hostess. Being a hostess at this particular restaurant meant I was in charge of seating people, while also writing down takeout orders for pickup over the phone, then collecting their food from the kitchen, boxed up into a to-go bag for when they would come to pick up their order. Now, some of you may remember a commercial for men's suits that used to play all the time back then, where it would always end with a man's low, gravely voice saying, "You're gonna like the way you look, I guarantee it." This company is still around and rhymes with Hen's Bear House. The man in that commercial actually lived locally, as at that time he was the CEO of that company. All this is important for later. By now, I had been working at this restaurant for a little over a month and was finally starting to get the hang of things. I still made mistakes here and there, but most people were understanding, as back then I barely looked old enough to work. I answered the phone, and as soon as I heard the entitled parent of this story on the other end say, "Hi, could I get an order for pickup?" I instantly knew who he was, as that entitled parent's voice was that recognizable. So I felt a little excitement knowing I'd meet a man I see often on TV, and I diligently wrote down his pretty large order for the kitchen. He asked for like 15 different items. Not long after I got his order from the kitchen, bagged it up, and within 20 minutes he came to pick up his order. As he walked through the doors of the restaurant, I noticed he was followed by a boy, who kept silent the whole time he was there. I was a little in awe seeing this man in person, as I know it sounds stupid, but seeing any person that was on TV was exciting to a young me. Though I kept my composure and handed him his 2 stuffed bags of food, as he proceeded to thank me and hand me a crisp $10 bill. I was over the moon, as no one ever tips the girl who hands you your pickup order. I thanked him profusely as he left. No less than 5 minutes later, after he had driven away, a cook comes running to me while carrying a small box and says, "We forgot the fries with one of his burger orders." I was annoyed, but told him I'd keep it at my podium in case he comes back for it. But it was just a side of fries and a 15-item order, so I assumed he would be annoyed when he saw it, but he wouldn't take the time to actually drive all the way back to the restaurant once he got home and noticed it. Wrong. 10 minutes later, I see him come barging through the door without the kid he had before. I smile sweetly and say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. It seems the kitchen forgot your fries." He cuts me off as he grabs the box of fries from me, snarling, "Give me back my $10 bill." I'm a little shocked at this point and immediately hand it back to him, feeling crushed I had lost that tip, though I knew it had been my mistake for not checking to make sure every entree had its side, so I understood why he would ask for such a hefty tip back. However, then he leans in close, and in a quieter tone this time, so that I'm the only one in the restaurant that can hear him, he says, "If you were my employee, I'd fire you." And with that, he turns his back to me and leaves. I stand there for a few moments, shell-shocked, until the weight of everything hits me and I run to the bathroom to shed a few tears before gaining my composure to go back to my hostess podium to wait for more guests to be seated. Thankfully, I never saw him again. A few years later, I happened to come across a news article that mentioned how he had been ousted from Hen's Bear House, and I like to think that this was his karmic retribution for destroying what little confidence I had as a teen. If you could meet one person who had been on TV, who would it be? Please let us know.
One day I'm going to meet Kate Gosselin, and we're going to get someone fired.
Reneg, once the job's done, prepare for your just desserts. A few years after I started my business, I was asked to clean up and optimize a number of PCs in multiple locations, as well as set up some forms and templates for a new client who owned a local restaurant. The work, all labor apart from a little travel, was performed over the space of a month due to scheduling conflicts and school holidays. But on completing the last of it, the client confirmed verbally that he was happy with all I had done and to go ahead and send an invoice. I duly emailed an invoice for a sum just in excess of £400. I waited for payment, never heard anything, sent reminder emails, called and left messages, but no response. Eventually, a couple of busy months had passed and I met the client by chance in the local supermarket. On asking why he had not paid or been in touch, he said that all the PCs were as bad as they had been before I'd started and that he had tried to contact me with no success. As my landline and mobile phone had caller display as well as answering services and there had been no emails, I knew the latter was BS. And as any PC user knows, a system can easily go back to right where it was if the user's bad habits don't change. So I contacted a local debt collector, gave him the details, printouts of my call logs and post-invoicing emails, and he took them to the restaurateur. On his return, his words were, "He's not disputing the invoice. He's saying that the work wasn't done right, so it's his word against yours." I queried if it was worth taking the guy to small claims, to which the debt collector said, "Even if you could prove he confirmed he was satisfied with the work, they might insist you get his computers back to pre-invoice state again. Do you really want to spend more time doing that?" Of course, the answer was no, so I stewed it over in my mind and came up with a plan. At this point, it was late November, so creating 2 throwaway email accounts and female names, I got in touch with the restaurant to book a large party for Valentine's night the following February. I put down as my husband's surprise 40th birthday party, confirmed that my husband's sister, and CC'd her in the message with the other throwaway, couldn't make the journey north, but would happily pay the £10 head deposit as her share towards the night. Of course, as time went on, the ideas grew arms and legs. The numbers attending increased, until the owner suggested he'd reserve the whole restaurant for the evening, and they had happily arranged the seating to suit us. But could I ensure the deposit was sorted ASAP, please? Of course, I confirmed that the sister was a scatterbrain, and that I'd ensure the check was with him very soon. He emailed the sister using the CC address, and she confirmed it had been posted. To keep him on side, I asked for a proposed menu in advance so that I could send it to all the attendees for pre-ordering. Naturally, they were delighted that they'd know this as it makes their life much easier. Consequently, the numbers for all 3 courses were emailed in, with a few fussy eater variables thrown in for good measure. Needless to say, by the beginning of February, he was getting quite antsy about there being no sign of the deposit, but I reassured him that the sister's check must have been lost in the post, so she'd send another by special delivery if they could ensure someone was there to sign for it. I knew the owner lived about 25 miles away, and the restaurant didn't open until 5 p.m., so he'd have to come in very early and hang around waiting for it. A week before D-Day, and he'd obviously had enough. He emailed in a spat saying they had turned away numerous inquiries, had no deposit, and could no longer hold back on taking other bookings. This time, I didn't bother replying. My part was done. My wife, at the time, and I were booked in at another restaurant close by for our own Valentine's meal, after which we took a walk past the restaurateur's business premises to see just 2 cars in their parking lot, one of which was his. I'm not sure how much he must have lost out on that night, but knowing his prices, I'd bet it was significantly more than the £400 I'd invoiced him. Of course, lessons were learned by me too. Get written or emailed confirmation of job satisfaction for one, and not letting new clients go unbilled for too long was another. Naturally, I had no hesitation letting all and sundry know how he had behaved either. So he was blacklisted or forced to pay up front for any work by IT and other professionals I knew locally. Have you ever done a job for someone and have them refuse to pay you? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
I wonder if he could have just called corporate.
Am I the jerk for not leashing my dogs on my property to accommodate someone who is trespassing? I live in a fairly remote area that attracts a lot of tourists due to a nearby popular hiking trail. My place has 4 units. 2 are Airbnb type rentals and 2 are permanent residences. Mine is one of the permanent ones. We have a lot of problems with tourists using our parking for turning around, looking up directions, or just trying to park and leave their cars while they go hike. There's a large parking area for tourists by the trailhead. Our parking area is a large, open area. This is private property, and there are signs posted. I have 3 friendly dogs, and the other permanent resident has 2. We very rarely leash any of them. We just let them out and supervise their running and playing. I will leash them if one of the Airbnb guests has an issue with dogs. So I go to let my dogs out this afternoon, and there's someone out in our parking area messing with his snow chains. He has a kid, around 9 to 10 years old with him. Me, are you visiting someone here? I get no response, so I ask again. Still no response, so I start playing frisbee with one of my dogs. Tourist, can you please leash your dog? We are afraid. Me, are you visiting someone here? Tourist, no, I'm just stopping to take the chains off. Me, then no, I'm not leashing my dogs. We are afraid of dogs. This is my home. My dogs are on my private property. Tourist gives me a dirty look but doesn't say anything. He finishes taking his snow chains off and is getting ready to leave. Tourist with a rude tone. I'm sorry I asked you to leash your dogs. We're just allergic and afraid. Me, you're on my private property and you are trespassing. My dogs have a right to be here, on their property. Maybe you should have thought about that before saying something. He didn't say anything else and left a few minutes later. I posted about the incident on my Facebook and someone said I was rude for not accommodating. I think I'm in the right because it's my property and this guy had no right to be here and he was trespassing. So, users of Reddit, am I the jerk? Edit to add a few things. Info 1. The local laws are that dogs must be under control at all times, meaning leashed, tethered, fenced, or voice commands. My dogs are all trained to obey voice commands. 2. Public parking areas are available less than a half a mile in either direction. 3. He was fully in my driveway with room to put at least 2 vehicles behind him and the entrance. Also, I could and would have been nicer if I hadn't asked him twice if he was visiting and been ignored. It wasn't clear what he was doing when I first went out because he was standing next to his car. I didn't get really close because I'm female and was concerned for my own safety. Edit 2. Once he told me he was scared of dogs, I made sure they stayed away from him in his car. Final edit, I hope. I got home from work and there was a note on my door. It basically said he would have been much more comfortable if I had leashed my dogs, but thanked me for, at least, being nice enough to keep the dogs away. So, for all the people who said I'm the jerk, at least know I wasn't a total jerk. Well, who do you agree with? OP or the tourist? Please let us know.
I would have sicked my doggos on him and probably gotten in a lot of trouble.
$7 for a sandwich? I want to see a manager. It finally happened. I witnessed my first Karen. Boyfriend and I went to the local mini market to get some pizza dough. Thankfully, there's not much of a line, so we get on and wait our turn. Suddenly, we see/hear this lady, henceforth known as Karen. Unfortunately, she doesn't have the haircut. Go off on this poor cashier girl complaining about the sandwich from the deli. I'm guessing she didn't know the price until it was rung up, because suddenly we hear,
$7? Are you kidding?
My boyfriend and I look at each other like, oh God. Karen,
I want to see a manager. This is ridiculous.
The cashier goes and comes back with a manager within 2 seconds. It's a small store. I gotta give credit. This guy doesn't back down. Karen is complaining about the price of the sandwich, and manager is explaining that the weight of the meat in the sandwich equals the price. She is not having it. Karen,
I can get it for much cheaper at the deli down the street.
In my head, I'm like, then why are you here? Karen,
I'm still gonna buy it. But just look at it. This isn't much meat.
Manager, I'm sorry you don't like our prices, but that's how much it is with the weight of the meat, cheese, and spread. Karen,
but that's far too high. Let me show you the sandwich.
Manager, miss, if you open the container, you have to buy it.
I'll still pay for it, but I'm never coming here again.
Lady proceeds to open the container and show him the contents of the sandwich. Manager, there's plenty of meat and cheese. Karen,
but not worth $7.
Manager, I don't make the prices. I'm sorry, miss. Manager rolls his eyes and leaves. This lady is now berating this cashier who has nothing to do with the pricing. My first job when I was 17 was as a cashier for a supermarket, so I immediately empathized with the girl. There's so much you want to say, but can't, because you have to keep that customer service smile in order to get that paycheck. The other cashier calls for me and boyfriend to ring us up. Then I hear this ridiculousness. Karen,
what happened to the people who used to own this place? They never would have priced it like this.
Cashier, I'm not sure. I was hired after new ownership took over. Even so, they no longer own this store.
Karen, I'm going to make a complaint. This is ridiculous. $7 for a tiny sandwich?
Okay, so I've been to this store many times. The sandwiches aren't big, but there's a decent amount of meat in there, and it depends on what kind of sandwich you get. At this point, I've had enough, and so has boyfriend. We don't want to make a scene, and I'm not very good with confrontation. Boyfriend and I leave. The exit is right where Karen and the cashier are. We get to exit, and just before we leave, I shout, "Bye, Karen!" Karen turns her head to look at me with bewildered eyes. I walk off. Boyfriend looks at this lady with an annoyed/disapproving look. It may have been a bit cowardly, but I'm still kind of proud of it. Especially when I heard one of the cashiers let out a laugh. Boyfriend and I laugh all the way back to the car. I don't know what happened after we left, but from the look at that lady's face, I think she realized just how she looked. Not very dramatic, no cops, no rants, just an entitled lady complaining about a sandwich. Oh, and boyfriend and I made an awesome pizza. You definitely haven't seen this video, so come watch it next and we'll see you when you get there.
And support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a special shout out in our next video. And to have us make a special video for your loved ones, wishing them a happy holidays, come visit us on Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.